I'm here today, teachers, with my friend Scott Noet, who is a social studies teacher at Owatonna Middle School in Owatonna, Minnesota. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Getting by, distance learning. Um,
Well, and
middle school needs the face-to-face, so it's a little rough, but we're all doing what we
and
can.
we're talking about some of the resources that Scott has created based on the Spanish flu. So we had those great conversations with Ken Davis and resources, but we thought it'd be really interesting to see how this is done in a classroom. Now, these were all things that Scott did in his in-person classroom before the days of the coronavirus pandemic. But Scott, do you want to talk to us a little bit about how you got interested in the Spanish flu?
Sure. I'm social studies, but I do teach at an environmental STEM school. So every time I'm doing things in social studies, I'm trying to connect at least with science, math, things like that. And the NEH had the 100th anniversary workshop in the summer about Spanish flu. And I did a little thing on the Spanish flu in my class, like for one day. Kids are interested. I thought it was pretty interesting. And I saw that and I said, well, here's a great way to hook up with science for sure. And maybe work together with that. And it's kind of something that we don't talk much about, even though it killed 675,000 people in the United States and about 100 million worldwide. And it's really not anywhere to be found in a lot of standards. So I just thought it was interesting.
And so you did the NEH Summer Institute, and then you brought it back to your students. What did your students think about the Spanish flu?
Didn't know anything about it first. And then first of all, of course, was I'm not getting a flu shot, it hurts. And so we went from flu shots, about why you should get a flu shot, into everything that was around it. And we hooked it up with World War I, because we always do a lot on World War I. And we went from there. But we went from talking about the cures back in the day, quackery, things like that. And a lot of kids were really interested in what happened with sports during the time, and things that are going on now also. They were interested in that. When they shut the baseball season down due to World War I, but then they shut the football season in the fall down during the flu. And so the NCAA ended up with 2 national champions in football that year because they couldn't finish the schedule. Playing with masks on, the whole thing was, and played a lot of games without any spectators too. So they're all into that. And then other things about, ads about go ride your bicycle, get fresh air, which we're doing today. Get outside, scrub that screen time off your soul and get out into the woods. Get rid of your nature deficit disorder. So there's a lot of parallels, as you've said on, the other videos that you've done. But, you see more and more of it coming up. Like I had my kids, they were doing TikToks right away about washing your hands. So they're automatically getting their social media involved, which is one of the projects that we do about getting the word out in modern times, but also not leaving older generation behind. So they got to kind of have a foot in both worlds and make sure they do that. So they're like, yeah, old people, Facebook, things like that. So that's always fun.
So you shared a bunch of your teaching resources with us. So thank you so much. We are going to post those in the resources page that we put together with Kenneth Davis. Anything in particular you want to call out that was really fun for you and your students?
I think the question formulation technique really worked well. Using the old photos, which I included from World War I and the pandemic. People looking at the old medical devices and all the masks and masks on cats, and the whole thing like that. They thought that was pretty funny. And so what I did is, you can do this. I did some jigsaw puzzles with some of those pictures. So you can go on the site and the kids can put those together. And then from there, we did our QFT with the picture that they got to put together and generated questions about the pandemic. And then we did research from there. So they had to construct the picture, make the questions, and then decide what they wanted to research.
So that sounds like something that could be done during this distance learning time.
You sure could, especially with the puzzles online. Those are fun to do. They put those together and they can see what those are. And then try to figure out what they are.
Awesome.
It's good, with all primary sources too. So kind of nice.
Great. Well, we are going to share all of Scott's resources, and all the information that he's given us about how to teach the Spanish flu, because it's never been more relevant than it is right now.
There's also a couple of things on there that are, all web-based, like doing your own news headlines in newspapers, or crawl across the screen, kind of like a CNN thing, doing a billboard that you would put up like for all of your advertising. There's all things that kids can do with that distance learning, pop art posters, movie posters, things like that, all on the free sites that you can use. So it's all stuff they can hand into you on email or your Google Classroom or Schoology or whatever you're doing like that, and have a little fun with it, I think.
Awesome. Anything else you want to share with the teachers?
I just think there's so many parallels. I have my kids doing their own primary source they're creating about themselves. And they're interviewing family members, doing some oral history, which I have some oral history in there about Philadelphia too in 1918. So there's a lot of parallels there, and just creating their own primary source. So their grandchildren can laugh at their hairstyles and stuff, but also see what was going on at the time. And I think that's pretty interesting. And they're putting some really fun stuff in there, and also some really poignant things about how it's changed their lives and their parents' lives, and where they have their physical setup and they do their schooling at home, all that stuff. It's really interesting what these kids are doing in different situations that they have, and how they're keeping connected with each other too. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being willing to share all of your materials and your insights, and thank you for all that you're doing for teachers and for your students.
Well, I think we all get through it together. I don't want to do, I do physical distancing, not social distancing. So, we all got to stick together.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Scott. And thanks to everybody who has been tuning in. And I hope that you find these resources to be helpful.
All right. Cheers.